In February of 2018, the United States government did something it almost never does. It declared an animal extinct. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service removed the eastern cougar from the endangered species list, not because it had recovered, but because there was nothing left to protect. The last one on record was killed by a hunter in Maine in 1938. 80 years of nothing. The file was closed. The ghost cat of Appalachia was gone. There is only one problem with that story. The phone never stopped ringing. Every single year, state and federal biologists across the East field hundreds of cougar sightings, from Nova Scotia to Mississippi, up and down the spine of the Appalachians. A tawny cat the size of a small deer crossing a logging road at dusk. A long, rope-thick tail disappearing into the laurel. A scream in the night that no house cat makes. People who have hunted these mountains their entire lives swear on it, and they are not all lying, and they are not all wrong. Because here is the part that turns a tall tale into a genuine mystery. Some of those sightings are real, confirmed, photographed, DNA tested. So which is it? Is the animal extinct, or isn't it? The honest answer is stranger than either, and by the end you'll see why the question, are there cougars in Appalachia, doesn't actually have a yes or no answer at all. If you love a real wildlife mystery, the kind with actual evidence on both sides, go ahead and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely helps the channel. And tell me one thing while you're here. Where in the world are you watching from, and have you or someone you trust ever seen a big cat where there weren't supposed to be any? Drop it in the comments. I read them. Let's get into it. To understand the mystery, you have to understand the hole in the map, the absence the sightings are echoing into. Once, the cougar was the most widely distributed land mammal in the entire Western Hemisphere. It ranged across every state east of the Mississippi, from Michigan down through South Carolina, all through Appalachia. Painter, panther, catamount, mountain lion, ghost cat, every region had its own name for the same tawny predator, because every region had one. And then, in the span of a single century, the East erased it. As European settlers cleared the forests and shot out the white-tailed deer the cougar lived on, they turned on the cat itself, hunting it, trapping it, bounties on its head, killing it out of fear for their families and their livestock. By around 1900, the cougar had all but vanished from the entire eastern United States. By 1938, in the deep woods of Maine, the last confirmed one was dead. What was left was the name. Sports teams still called themselves the Cougars and the Catamounts. Grandfathers still told stories. The animal survived as folklore, as a mascot, as a thing that used to be, a predator-shaped silence in a landscape that had spent 10,000 years with it in the picture. The mountains were still there. The deer eventually came roaring back, but the cat that had shaped both was, by every official record, simply gone. And it isn't as if no one looked. The government took the rumor seriously enough to send a biologist named Bob Downing into the Appalachian Mountains for 6 straight winters, searching for any hard sign of a surviving cougar. 6 winters in the mountains. He found none. Decades later, one of the groups that tracks these reports estimated it had fielded hundreds of tips over the years and confirmed almost none of them. That's the setup. A confirmed absence. 80 years deep. Tested by people who genuinely wanted to find the cat. Now watch what started walking into it. On the night of June 11th, 2011, on the Wilbur Cross Parkway in Milford, Connecticut, an SUV struck and killed a mountain lion. A wild cougar, dead on a highway in suburban New England, was the first hard proof of a cougar in Connecticut in more than a century. The immediate assumption was the obvious one: an escaped pet. Somebody's illegal exotic that got loose. That assumption held until they ran the DNA. And the DNA told a story so improbable that biologists still talk about it with a kind of awe. The cat was wild. It had been born in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And over roughly 2 years, this single young male had walked through Minnesota, through Wisconsin, across the top of the Great Lakes, through New York, something on the order of 2,000 miles, one of the longest movements ever recorded for a land mammal in North America. Along the way, trail cameras and DNA had actually tracked him, without anyone realizing it was all the same cat. He crossed rivers and interstates and an entire continent's worth of the most developed country on Earth. And he did it for the reason young male cougars do everything. He was looking for a mate. he never found one. He found the parkway instead. That single animal rewrote what everyone thought was possible. Because if one cougar could walk from South Dakota to Connecticut, then the hundreds of Appalachian sightings could not simply be dismissed as fantasy anymore. The distance was no longer a wall. The question stopped being, could a cougar even get there? And became something much harder to answer. For decades, every Appalachian cougar report died the same death. No evidence, no tracks, no hair, no photo that survived scrutiny, just a story. And then the trail cameras arrived, and the ghosts started showing up on film. In November of 2014, a cougar carcass turned up in Bourbon County, Kentucky. Real, physical, undeniable. Then, in September of 2015, a 19-year-old hunter checked a trail camera at one of his favorite spots in Obion County in northwest Tennessee, and there it was, a cougar. The state wildlife agency scrutinized the image hard. The timestamp, the SD card, the way the cat measured against deer photographed by the same camera. It was nearly as long as a deer. It was real, and it was the first confirmed cougar in Tennessee since the early 1900s. And it didn't stop. 6 days later, about 35 miles away in Carroll County, a bow hunter shot and wounded a cougar. This time they got DNA straight off the arrow. Then, in September of 2016, another trail camera caught one in Wayne County near the Alabama line. In just about a year, cougars were confirmed, photographed, or sampled across multiple Tennessee counties on the western doorstep of Appalachia for the first time in 100 years. There's a pattern hiding in those confirmations, though, and it matters. Look at where they cluster. Obion, Carroll, Wayne, Humphreys, counties in western and central Tennessee, the side of the state closest to the Mississippi. Not the high Blue Ridge, not the deep Smokies. The confirmed cats show up right where you'd expect an animal that just crossed the river from the west, still on the near edge of Appalachia, not yet in its heart. That's a fingerprint. It says these are arrivals caught at the door, not residents caught at home. The ghost was no longer just a story, it was on camera. And here is where the mystery deepens instead of resolving, because when the biologists ran the DNA on those cats, the answer they got wasn't the one the sightings seemed to promise. Every confirmed cougar that has been genetically tested in the East tells the same story. The Connecticut cat, from the Black Hills of South Dakota, the Kentucky carcass, traced to the Black Hills of South Dakota, the Tennessee female shot with the arrow, the Black Hills of South Dakota. Over and over, the same origin, 1,000 to 2,000 miles to the west. This is the twist that reframes everything. The cougars showing up in and around Appalachia are real, wild cougars, but they are not the resurrected eastern cougar. They are western mountain lions, dispersing east out of expanding populations in the Dakotas and the Midwest, wandering into old range their ancestors were driven out of a century ago. And there's a pattern inside the pattern. These long-distance travelers are almost always young males. In cougar society, the older males hold the territory, and the young ones get pushed out to find their own, and with populations out west recovering and running out of room, some of those young males set off on enormous journeys east, chasing empty land and mates that mostly aren't there. They are the overflow of a western comeback, spilling across the Mississippi one wanderer at a time. Which means the Appalachian sightings are split into two completely different things. A small number are these real, confirmed western dispersers passing through, and the vast majority, the hundreds every year, are something else entirely. Bobcats, house cats seen at a bad angle, dogs, even the occasional escaped pet, filtered through a landscape full of people primed by a century of legend to see a ghost cat in the brush. There's one detail that gives the game away on a huge share of the reports. A great many eastern sightings describe a black panther, a big, jet-black cat sliding through the timber. It's one of the most persistent images in Appalachian folklore, and it cannot be a cougar. Biologists are blunt about this. No black cougar has ever been documented anywhere in the entire history of the species, not one. A truly black, long-tailed cat in Appalachia is describing an animal that does not exist, which tells you how much of what people see is being painted in good faith by the legend itself. Both of those things are true at the same time, and that is exactly what makes this so hard to pin down. If you're still with me, hit subscribe, because the next part is the twist that breaks the whole question open. The one detail that means is the eastern cougar back might be the wrong question entirely. Keep going. Here is the sentence that quietly detonates this entire debate. It comes from Dr. Mark Elbrock, one of the leading cougar scientists in the world, who leads the Puma program at the big cat organization Panthera. And what he says is this: "There is no eastern cougar, and there never was an eastern cougar." For most of the last century, scientists divided North America's cougars into as many as 13 or 15 different subspecies based on old measurements, the shape of a skull, the length of a foot, the color of a coat. The eastern cougar was one of those subspecies, the Florida panther was another. But when modern genetic testing arrived, that neat map fell apart. The DNA showed that the cougars of North America simply are not different enough from one another to justify splitting them into all those subspecies. From the mountain lions of Washington state to the panthers of Florida, they're essentially one animal. Many scientists now argue the old eastern cougar label should be dissolved completely, that it was a bookkeeping category, not a biological reality. Sit with what that means for the extinction. In 2018, the government declared the eastern cougar extinct. But if the eastern cougar was never a genuinely separate animal in the first place, if it was always just the local population of the same cougar that still thrives out west, then the cats now walking back into Appalachia from the Dakotas aren't ghosts of a vanished subspecies at all. They are, genetically, the same animal that was always here, returning to the same mountains from the western edge of the same continuous species. The extinct animal and the confirmed animal might be biologically the exact same cat. The extinction was real as a local event. We did wipe them out of the east, but as a species, the cougar never died. It just got pushed west, and now the tide is turning around. So if wild cougars are genuinely reaching the edge of Appalachia, and they're the same animal that used to live there, and the mountains are full of deer again, the obvious next question is, are they back for good? Is there a breeding population hiding in the Smokies right now? And this is where the evidence goes cold, in a way that's almost more haunting than the sightings. Because for all the hundreds of reports a year, two specific kinds of proof are almost entirely missing. And they're the two that would settle it. The first is kittens. A breeding population means reproduction, females with cubs, young cats, the next generation. In 100 years of eastern sightings, confirmed evidence of cougars actually breeding in Appalachia is essentially non-existent. Almost every confirmed animal is a lone, wandering male. The females mostly stay put out west. They don't make those epic dispersals. And a handful of bachelor males passing through decades apart is not a population. It's a series of dead ends. The second missing piece is grimmer, and even more telling, roadkill. In Florida, where a genuine breeding population of panthers exists, cars kill dozens of them a year. It's the leading cause of panther death, a steady, tragic drumbeat of bodies on the highway. That's what an established population looks like near roads. In Tennessee, across Appalachia, in all those years of sightings, almost none. A confirmed cougar body on an eastern road is a once-in-years event, not a yearly toll. Think about what that absence proves. If there were dozens of breeding cougars living in the Great Smoky Mountains, 500,000 acres of perfect deer-rich, protected habitat, the interstates around them would be killing cats. The trail cameras, which now blanket these woods by the thousands, would be full of kittens. Neither is happening. Which means the most likely truth is the hardest one for a believer to accept. There is no hidden breeding population in Appalachia. Not yet. There are only visitors. And getting from visitor to resident is brutally hard. For a western cougar to reach the Smokies, it has to cross the Mississippi River, thread past cities like Memphis or Nashville, and survive a gauntlet of interstates. A highway like Interstate 40 is a death trap for a dispersing animal, all while dodging hunters in a region that gets more developed every year. The very corridors a cat would need to move safely are shrinking. So the wonder isn't that so few make it, the wonder is that any make it at all. So why do the reports keep pouring in, hundreds a year, decade after decade, if the animal mostly isn't there? Part of the answer is the cats that genuinely are passing through, but the larger part is us, and it's the most human piece of this whole story. For over a century, these mountains have carried the legend of the ghost cat, the panther scream, the tawny shape at the field's edge, the story every grandfather tells. When you raise generations of people inside that story, in a landscape that really did once hold the animal, the mind does the rest. A bobcat at dusk becomes a cougar. A big house cat, 200 yards off with nothing to give away its scale, becomes a mountain lion. A dog, A deer in shadow, a fleeting shape, the brain reaches for the legend because the legend is already there. That's not mockery. The wildlife agencies are careful and a little sad about it, because the people reporting these cats are sincere, and some fraction of them are genuinely right. That's what makes it insoluble. You cannot tell a rural Appalachian who saw a long-tailed cat cross the road that they're wrong, because sometimes they aren't. The confirmed cases prove the ghost is occasionally solid, and the trend line only points one way. Western cougar populations are expanding. A breeding pair has been documented as far east as Nebraska. Every year, the front edge of that recovery creeps closer to the Mississippi, and every year, a few more young males make the crossing. The dispersers reaching Appalachia today may be the scouts of something larger, the leading edge of a slow, natural return that could, given enough decades and enough females, eventually put a real breeding population back in these mountains for the first time since the 1800s. Some conservationists are urging exactly that. Bring them back on purpose. Their argument is ecological, that a landscape overrun with white-tailed deer is a landscape missing its top predator, and that returning the cougar would thin the herds, ease the vehicle collisions deer already cause, and even curb the tick-borne disease that explodes when deer go unchecked. The cat, they argue, isn't just a ghost worth chasing. It's a missing piece the whole forest is quietly out of balance without. The sightings aren't going to stop. If anything, they're going to start being right more often. Step back and look at the shape of it. 2011, a cat crosses a continent and dies on a Connecticut parkway. 2014, a body in Kentucky. 2015, a photograph in Tennessee, then an arrow, then another county. 2016, another camera, near Alabama. Every few years, the ghost turns solid again, a little farther east, a little harder to explain away, and every year in between, the hundreds of unconfirmed reports keep the legend warm. It's a story with no clean ending because it's still being written in real time by an animal that refuses to obey the paperwork. The government's file says extinct. The genetics say the category was never real. The trail cameras say something is out there. The missing kittens and the empty roads say it isn't home yet. All four of those are true at once. And underneath all of it runs one quiet fact. The habitat is ready. The great eastern forests have grown back. The white-tailed deer have returned in numbers the old settlers never saw. The mountains are, right now, exactly the kind of country a cougar was built for, a set table waiting on a guest that keeps sending scouts ahead. So the file stays open no matter what the official record says. We know we killed them out of the east. We know a single cat can cross a continent to get back. We know the ones that make it are real and wild and genetically the same animal that always belonged here. We know the government called them extinct, and we know that the science says the thing they declared extinct may never have been a separate thing at all. And we know the two proofs that would tell us whether they've truly come home, the kittens, the bodies on the road, still aren't there. What we don't know is when that changes. Whether the lone male photographed this year is the last of the wanderers or the first of the settlers. Whether the next trail camera in some Appalachian hollow catches a female with cubs. What is known is that the mountains are still standing, still green, still thick with deer and quiet at dusk, and that people are still seeing a tawny shape at the tree line, still hearing that scream in the dark, the one no house cat makes. Most of them are wrong. A few of them are not. And somewhere west of here tonight, at the edge of a recovering range, a young cougar that has never seen these mountains is turning east, toward a country that was emptied of his kind 100 years ago, and has been waiting, the whole time, for one of them to come home and stay.